They faced incredible odds and unbeatable enemies to earn the name hero. But now there's a new way to spell action. Jim Carrey is Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. He's the best there is.
Excuse me, gentlemen. Pet Detective.
Actually, he's the only one there is.
You really love animals, don't you?
If it gets cold enough.
Now, the mascot of the Miami Dolphins has been kidnapped.
Allllllrighty then.
And he's on the case of a lifetime.
Listen, pet dick, how would you like me to make your life a living hell?
Well, I'm not really ready for a relationship, Lois.
There's no place he won't go.
Captain's log, starting 23.9.
Ace, get out of the tank.
I just can't do it, Captain. I don't have the power.
Nothing he won't do. And no one he can't handle.
Hey! I could do anything to embarrass me in front of camp.
What? Like this?
Hi, Captain Stubing.
Because when this pet detective gets the scent,
Where's Dan Marino?
Hi, I'm Dan Marino.
Reno, why?
Because he's about to join Snowflake.
he'll follow it anywhere.
Here's Snowflake.
Jim Carrey is
Do not go in there.
Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
Yes, yes, yes.
Welcome back to a brand new episode of ReconCinemation. I'm your host, John Diner.
I'm David Munchak.
I'm Brent Hutchins.
And this is the podcast that takes a look back at some of our favorite films from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And we have a really relevant film today. David, you just lost your 13-foot pet Komodo dragon. Who are we going to possibly get to track that down?
Well, I mean, Coco's gone. I'm assuming she ran away, but she could have been kidnapped. Either way, I'm going to need a professional to help me. I need a pet detective, and I think there's only one man to call, and I think that's Ace Ventura, pet detective.
That's right. That's
He is the best in the biz.
He gets
the only one in the biz.
The whole biz.
What? Who's that? Wait.
Wait,
It's a random fourth voice in this.
Crash the party, folks.
Uh-oh, it's this guy.
There's only one person we could bring in to help with this case, and it's Joe Cetta. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks, guys. The Cocoonies are back together again.
The Cocoonies reunite.
We're doing it again.
Hello.
Well, thanks for having me, despite, what I bring to the show in the past.
Yeah, despite.
We figure if we keep bringing you back, you'll get it right one of these days.
I'm just going to keep trying.
Just keep trying.
I'm hanging up B+.
Just don't give up.
The board.
Never give up. Never surrender.
We believe in second chances, third chances, fourth chances.
Eighth time now, guys.
Okay, we're on the eighth. Ooh.
Eight Timers Club.
Oh, boy.
Very optimistic on our end.
So, Joe, what's going on with your podcast that happened 1 year?
Oh, we are still cooking through season 3, 1984. We're covering trying to find the most 1984 of topics. So, we've done lifestyles, the rich and famous. We did a little Love Boat. We just recorded a pretty wild Who's the Boss episode. This sounds like a lot of TV, I admit.
You don't hear a lot of Who's the Boss podcasts out there.
No, but Sarah is a huge Who's the Boss person. And so I managed to just one night, it was like, hey, should we do a show? And it was like, Who's the Boss was the obvious thing to talk about. So, but we're covering a lot of things, a lot of music, a lot of, we did a Tip O'Neill episode for all you Speaker of the House heads out there. It's been a weird year.
That's been a popular thing lately. So,
you can't swing a stick without hitting two Tip O'Neill podcasts. That's just how it is.
Any weird murders or serial killers or things on the horizon there in '84?
We're trying to keep it light.
Was anyone killed in '84?
I think Marvin Gaye was killed in '84.
Oh,
I wasn't planning on talking about it, but okay. I mean, thanks for bringing it up.
David's got to go morbid. He's got to listen to the morbid side.
You're going to come in. I'm going to have to bring you in to talk about it because apparently that's your wheelhouse.
I want to talk to you about some of my some murderers.
This is what happens when you take David out of Shocktober. He just needs to have.
He comes in grizzly. Yeah.
This is what you've done to me. I stay dark. One check after dark. All right.
Well, this one won't check after dark. We've got a nice light one today, although there is murder in it actually. So maybe that'll fulfill a need for you today.
That's why I'm in good spirits, I think.
Yeah,
scratching that ugly itch.
Check the box.
David, catch us up for anyone who hasn't seen it in a while, which may be some people out there. I feel like it's not. It's one of those movies that a lot of people haven't rediscovered. But what's happening in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective?
Well, it was written by Jack Bernstein and Tom Shadyac and Jim Carrey, directed by Tom Shadyac. Am I saying that right? And it's about a detective who specializes in finding lost pets. And when the Miami Dolphins live dolphin mascot is kidnapped, Ace is called in to find the mammal and investigate who wants to disrupt the Super Bowl and Miami's chances to win it all. That's the basic plot.
That's it.
Nailed
all right, Brent, bring us back to February 1994, the great year of 94. And
sure
what's
thing.
a couple things happening?
Let's see. Number one song at the time is All for Love by Bryan Adams and Rod Stewart and Sting. Green Day just released the album Dookie, which kind of launched them into the stratosphere of pop music. The Cowboys won the Super Bowl over the Bills, 30-13. Top shows on TV at the time are Step by Step, Melrose Place, and Married with Children. And the top kids shows, I say kids with quotation marks because I disagree with some of these, are You Afraid of the Dark, Goof Troop, and X-Men, the animated series. A lot of good shit happened.
A lot of adult fare there.
Yeah.
Hey, X-Men, the animated series is rad, dude. And Are You Afraid of the Dark is a killer show for much more than just children.
And don't sleep on the hardcore Goof Troop. I'm just saying.
Well,
it's grotesque.
Goof Troop was my brother's.
He was a single dad. It was a fucking hard time.
Dude, they touched on a lot of really tough topics on Goof Troop.
Yeah.
1994, who was president of Mexico? Do we know?
President of Mexico. You're going to have to do your own research on that one, buddy.
All right, fair enough. Moving on.
All right. So Ace Ventura, when was the Joe, we'll start with you. When was the first time you saw it? Did you catch it in the theater or was it a home video?
It must have been on TV. I was a big In Living Color fan as a kid, but I don't think I saw any of the Jim Carrey movies in theaters in '94, even though that was basically every week they were just cranking out Jim Carrey content. Yeah. But no, I saw it. I'm pretty sure I saw it like on HBO when it first, like the first time. And I think like everyone else, I've seen it dozens of times. Like it was always on. So but no, I didn't venture out to theaters. It came out in like the spring or something, right?
It was February. Yeah, early February.
Yeah. So in my driving days, there was, getting to the theater had to be a pretty particular occasion, and Ace Ventura was not it. So no.
Brent, what about you? Catch it in the theater or video?
I don't really remember. I know I saw it a bunch, and I'm having a hard time pinpointing if it was in the theater or if it was on video. I definitely saw Mask and Dumb and Dumber at the theater, which came out that same year. And the reason I saw those at the theater is because I loved Ace Ventura, but that seems like such a short amount of time between when Ace Ventura came out and those two movies. I feel like I may have seen this at the theater, but it really is going to depend on when the DVD came out, because it was also when I was working at Video Impact. I think the DVD came out like June of 94, and then Mask came out July of 94, so that time might work out. But honestly, I don't recall where exactly I saw it the first time, but I watched it over and over and over again and thought it was freaking hilarious when I did watch it. And it totally plugged Jim Carrey into my number one favorite comedian for the time slot, without a doubt.
Yeah, that the entire year of 94 and really 95 was just huge for Jim Carrey, which we'll get into. David, how about you? When's the first time you saw it?
Saw it in the theater, probably within a week of opening weekend, if not opening weekend. This was a huge draw for me. 14-year-old me, 8th grader me. Probably saw those ads and the commercials and the trailers playing, and I was a big In Living Color fan, and I was interested to see what the hell this was all going to be about. And I was cackling in the theater. Me and my brother went. Maybe we went with some friends too. But yeah, this was definitely a must see for me. And I did also see The Mask that in theaters. Brent, you misspoke. You said you saw Ace Ventura and Matt. I saw Mask and Ace Ventura. Now, Mask, of course, is that classic Eric Stoltz movie from 1985, which maybe you did also see that in the theater too. But let's just be, there's The Mask and Mask. Anyway.
Well, they are related, just like Batman and The Batman, right?
Thanks for clearing that up. I don't know that I would have been able to sleep tonight if I had not gotten through with that correction.
The Mask is a direct remake. I mean, obviously.
It is. Yeah. It's the same story.
Yeah.
Everyone knows it.
I was just chomping at the bit to just jump in about that. It's like, the Mask joke.
I'm glad you're here to correct my mistakes. It's not the first time, but I appreciate that you pay that close attention.
Words matter. And
like
the all important
Despite being the right age for The Mask, I've definitely seen the Cher Mask movie way more times. I can't even tell you why. Like, I know I've seen that movie dozens of times.
Can you even find that movie anymore? I remember seeing it a bunch, but like it
seemed like it was always on TV.
It was.
My sister was my sister was like a big Cher fan after Moonstruck, so I feel like I just saw all of those Cher movies from the 80s a bunch of times.
Well, if you want Cher, it's got to be Mask.
Obviously,
number one film.
Yeah. That's vintage Cher right there.
Vintage Cher. Yeah.
But John, were you racing to the theater? Did you have to beg and plead for a ride, or did you wait?
No, I definitely raced to the theater for sure. I was a huge In Living Color fan, super excited about this. I saw it opening night, and I remember I went with my group of friends, with my friend Greg and my friend Eamon, who are regular listeners to this show. We sat in the front row. So we got like the worst seats because we were like the last last ones there. So we were sitting in the front row, and I don't think I had laughed this hard up until this point in my life. Like, I was on the floor multiple times, just laughing uncontrollably. It hit every funny bone that I've got. I was just like, especially that HDS segment in the opening, like right off the bat, just got me. And and then I couldn't wait for it to come out on video. And I remember it might have been June, but it was like 6 or 8 months, sometimes longer, between back then when things would come out on video after they had done their theatrical run. So it may have actually been a little later in that summer. But I remember I bought it right away at Caldor, which is an defunct East Coast shopping store, like a Kmart kind of thing. Got that, watched it over and over and over. And a friend of mine and I went to his relative's house in upstate New York, where they only half of the house had electricity. But I made sure that the Ace Ventura videotape was with us so we could do something there that utilized the power. But
excellent.
Yeah, and then I
only half the house had electricity.
Yeah, it was very strange. It was like certain rooms had it. The bedrooms.
Can we not just blow past? Can we not just blow past this? Let's slow down for a second here, John. What kind of decrepit asshole building are you going to?
It was It was like an old farm, like it was like on a farm property, and they had just never. They like there was the old house, right, and then they added on, and the new add-on, like got all the all the electricity went there. It was the kitchen, the like living room, and all that. But where the bedrooms were,
talking about?
no power.
Half the rooms only had locks on the outside of the doors. No one knew why.
I don't get it.
Oh
Thanks
God,
for clarifying.
yeah,
That sounds terrifying.
That was a fun trip for sure. Said with all sarcasm.
At least you had Ace Ventura to keep you safe.
I did. We had to do something. So what else are you going to do without power?
Slaughtering our own chickens before dinner. So that was tough.
And then we'll get into the Jim Carrey fatigue that kind of sets in at a certain point during this massive, intense run of his. But I kind of fell out of love with this movie, and I didn't watch it for like 20 years. And I watched it again, I think last year or the year before, and I fell back in love with it. I think there's so many great things in it, and it's so 90s and dated a little bit, but it's still great.
Yeah, I had a mixed relationship with it too. I just hadn't seen it in a long time, and then I think, I don't know, at some point 10 years ago I watched it and I was like, this isn't even funny anymore, is it? And then watching it again, I think I watched it last year, or or within the last year, and then I was kind of digging a lot of it, but it's funny, and we could talk about it, but I mean, it's after this movie, like almost all of his catchphrases were, I would just repeat them ad nauseum for like the next 3 years. Like that's it, like that. And so watching this movie, I'm like, oh, this is it almost feels like a parody of a Jim Carrey movie. Like this, it's like, oh, like it's almost cringy. Like what's he doing? Like this doesn't even make sense. But but no one had ever seen anything like this back then. Like this was a crazy character. He's such a cartoon. And then so it's really strange to like, okay, I adopted a lot of his mannerisms and his speech patterns and his catchphrases. I wasn't like imitating him all the time, but it was always a reference. It's always referencing that movie, like just with all that stuff. So it was funny that now I've completely gone beyond all of that, and then to watch it again, it's this really weird mixture of like kind of cringing at it, but like still enjoying it, but it's also like a warm, comfortable blanket. It's really weird.
Yeah, that's how I found it too. It's just like I don't care that I've heard this 8 zillion times, but I love it.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, I wasn't a huge fan of this movie. I just seemed like it was always on, but like kind of to Dave's point, like it doesn't feel like a movie. It almost feels like he's just doing like impressions, and like none of it holds together, and like there's a plot, but the plot kind of doesn't matter, and like, and so I think for the longest time I just kind of wrote this movie off. I wasn't a huge Dumb and Dumber fan, and a lot of those movies in that stretch, I like The Mask, but The Mask was all effects. And it wasn't really until the later 90s stuff that I really liked Jim Carrey stuff. But I gotta be honest, like I haven't watched this movie in, I don't even know, like sat and watched the whole movie in a long time. And the other night we watched it the other night for this, and like I was like going in like there's no way this movie holds up. But like Sarah like was crying laughing for the first hour of them, like crying, and I was like, what is going on? Like, because I didn't know she liked this movie this much, but just she couldn't control herself, and I was like, holy shit, I think this movie does really hold up. Like, maybe I was wrong. Like,
it's one of those movies that like if you put it away, you put it in the closet for a very long time, and then you take it out, like it's almost gonna feel new again. Even though you know the jokes, the catchphrases, what's coming. It's I don't know. I found it the same way, like really, really funny when I rewatched it.
Yeah.
So let's dig in on Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey, up to this point, I mean, he'd been around a lot longer than I think people realized. He really came up in the very early part of the 1980s, doing his stand-up and coming from through Canada. And he was on the Tonight Show and got one of those honored spots on the Tonight Show, and it popped up in very random movies. Like
I love
Are Easy.
Once Bitten is one of my prior to Jim Carrey becoming the Jim Carrey that everybody knows, dude. I used to watch Once Bitten all the time, and then he got hugely famous, and I was like, oh wait, that's the dude from Once Bitten. Cool.
Huh.
It's so weird to see him in that too, like really pre what we know of as Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
And then
you see some of it in like Peggy Sue Got Married though. Like there's a scene in the cafeteria where he's like messing around and he like throws his arm back behind his head. Like he's starting to like see a little bit of this like physical comedy and like Man of a Thousand Faces type shit that he likes to do, his rubber man shit. But but yeah, it was it obviously didn't fully come to fruition until In Living Color, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he even shows up in some Clint Eastwood movies. Like he's in he's in the Deadpool, the last Dirty Harry movie.
Yeah. I saw that at the theater. He's also in Cadillac Man, which is also
I was going to say, wasn't he in Pink Cadillac? Is
Pink
that
Cadillac?
familiar?
Yeah.
Pink Cadillac. That's
Pink Cadillac.
So he's
Sorry,
like
Cadillac
he's
Man,
also being a stand-up or something like for like a 30 seconds. Yeah.
One of my favorites.
Oh, who doesn't like Pink Cadillac?
I think it's come up on the show in the early seasons.
Really?
Somehow, I keep sneaking in little references to.
Oh my God.
I haven't seen it as a kid.
I haven't seen. I remember as a kid really liking it, but I haven't seen it in 30 years. If you guys
I'll
ever
have
do
to check
Pink
it out.
Cadillac,
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Never
Bernadette
seen it.
Peters is in Pink Cadillac, right? And
Clint and Bernadette. Like, come on.
All right. I'm putting it on the list.
David's got the Pink Cadillac standee in his office, right in the corner.
Yeah. Just Clint with his arms
he's a mural
crossed.
in his bedroom.
Yeah, exactly.
Autographed by Bernadette.
What was she doing in his bedroom? Munchak.
David will never tell.
Nice.
I told her I was dying.
That was my make-a-wish, was Bernadette Peters.
I told her I was a 10-year-old boy.
She came and sang me a song. She sang all of Sunday in the Park with George.
Yeah. We had a nice time.
A fake Make-A-Wish kid.
Yeah. He put like measles on his face. It was great.
Yeah.
Just like Ace does when he's
that's right,
tracking down the dolphins.
That's right.
Okay, and then finally, he ends up getting cast on In Living Color, led by Keenan Ivory Wayans, and that was really what put him on the map and made him a real memorable name.
What was the character, like Ranger Bob or Fireman Fred?
Fire Marshal Bill.
Fire Marshal Bill. Yeah, dude,
yeah.
That guy was hilarious.
Yeah.
One of my favorite skit scenes ever, though, with him in it, is the one where he plays Vanilla Ice and he's doing the spoof on Ice Ice Baby. It is.
That's right.
I think that's the one that really I was like, dude, this guy has fucking got me on the floor.
Yeah.
In Living Color was such an amazing show that came out in the spring of 1990 or early in 1990, and was just, it blew me away. I was one of the biggest In Living Color fans when it first started, and it felt like it was Saturday Night Live, but much edgier, much more current. It felt like it was really for a younger audience than SNL at that time.
The Fox version of SNL, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So he was like the token white guy of that cast. Jim, and I don't know if that's why he was there. I mean, he's obviously extremely talented, but it was predominantly a black cast, and he was there, and there's so many memorable characters from that show, and he had a couple of his own. So it was so that's where I never saw Once Bitten or any of those other any of that early stuff of his. So that's my first exposure to him, was through that, watching 5 seasons of that or whatever, and then jumping into Ace Ventura. So that's all I know. And then it was like, oh, he was in Earth Girls Are Easy or whatever he was in. No, he wasn't in that. Or was he? Yeah. And so So then going back and just seeing clips.
It's him and Damon Wayans. Like Jeff Goldblum's alien buddies. So that's probably where the connection was made.
Yeah, that could be. That could have been his in to the Wayneses. Interesting. I didn't realize that. Huh.
But that's really where the wide audience gets to see what he does. And especially at that time, it was the impressions. It was, Brent, like you said, the rubber man, kind of comedy. He could do all these weird things with his body and his face. He could contort himself into really crazy positions, and I really hadn't seen anything quite like that at the time. So In Living Color was a massive show for at least the first 3, maybe 4 seasons. And he was so popular. I mean, there was quite a number of things that were very popular out of that show, but he really was one of the biggest ones. and it felt like pretty quickly like, all right, he's going to launch off of this, but it took him a bit to find the right project to make that leap from TV to film. That's especially then was a big and difficult jump when you were labeled as a TV star. That's kind of where you stayed. Ted Danson broke that mold with 3 Men and a Baby and Tom Selleck. So, which you can listen to in the archives, ReconCinemation.com. I just always have to
where we were going there.
Our 3 Men and a Baby episode. I have to work it in as often as possible.
It's legally binding. I got to do it.
It's our contract with Gutenberg, really. That's part of a stipulation.
Well, he is the leader of the Cocooниes, so
that's true.
There's no getting around it.
We're all getting Gutenberg tattoos next time I'm on the show. Live.
And it's got to be, it's all tattoos of Gutenberg's face. We get to pick which movie it's from.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going Zeus and Roxanne, personally.
Nice.
That's obscure.
Anyway.
All right.
So, around the same time, we got Tom Shadyac, who was a joke writer for Bob Hope, and came up kind of obviously the latter part of Bob Hope's career, but that's where he got his start, and I think he had done one like low budget film before this, but was kind of a known figure in the comedy world. So he jumps in and kind of lends a hand on this script. So he brings it to James G. Robinson at Morgan Creek, who's looking to make a modernized sort of version of Fletch, a detective story, a comedy. I don't think they were looking specifically to make like another Fletch movie, but they were looking for a vehicle, maybe another vehicle for Chevy Chase. Definitely Rick Moranis was somebody they were circling for this project, and it was a much different kind of comedy. Kind of didn't look anything like what we saw Ace Ventura as. And when James G. Robinson caught Jim Carrey on In Living Color, like everybody else did, and was blown away by him and really kind of pinned him for this movie. So once Shadyac comes in and Jim Carrey comes in, they really start overhauling the script and morph it to Carrey's strengths and his talents and what he's bringing to the table. So I don't know what other, like, picturing Rick Moranis in this movie is kind of bizarre.
That's a pretty different movie.
It is. Yeah. But at this point, since we don't get Rick Moranis anymore, I would take any extra Rick Moranis we could have had.
100%.
In retrospect, it would just be awesome to have more Rick Moranis movies out there to look at. But I don't want to take away from Jim Carrey and obviously the career that this was a springboard for. But man, I do miss myself some Moranis.
True Lies with Rick Moranis would have been awesome.
Oh my!
Throw Moranis in as Schwarzenegger's part, incredible.
With the wonders of AI these days, we could probably make that happen.
I think this is why there was a strike.
I mean,
we can't
it's
be
all about
Moranis.
This exact reason. Get Moranis in more projects.
He showed up in that commercial recently, and I was like, "Yes, all right, he's coming back,"
Right.
And then he disappeared again.
Yeah, it's my understanding with the SAG strike that there's a bunch of AI protections except Rick Moranis. They could do anything you want with Rick Moranis.
It's the Moranis clause. It's the Moranis clause.
He was pre-AI.
He's in the public domain. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's page 117 of the agreement. So
yeah, we might need to do a Moranis month now that we're on it. I think this needs to happen sometime.
I think we just opened a portal into Moranis world.
Yeah. I'm game.
What are we doing?
But they also, some other names that were floating around for this were Judd Nelson and Alan Rickman.
What?
I
want to see that Ace Ventura.
I mean, Rickman's got chops. Judd Nelson seems like he was just popular at the time, right?
He was sort of falling out of popularity at the time. Like, this is, after he's one of those guys that once it clocked 1990, they kind of almost like they were around, but just people weren't taking to them. They were doing some really weird movies.
The Rat Pack.
I don't know what this would have been. Yeah.
Was he like Shadyak's nephew?
The Brat Pack, whatever.
How did he get in there? Well, Judd could do it. Okay.
All right. Well, maybe.
Jeez. We'll put him on the list, I guess. Yeah.
And then another one was Whoopi Goldberg.
As Ace?
When did Sister Act
I could
come
see
out?
that. Jumpin' Jack Flash Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah.
Sister Act would have been, this was after. Well, I mean, I don't know what point her name was floating around, but Sister Act, it was either 91 or 92.
But I mean,
Maybe
like
so.
she was insanely popular coming off of
Yeah.
Sister Act and Sister Act 2. So like
Yeah.
she was, I still had a lot of, I'm sure in 93, 92, 93, when they were talking about casting, like she was a pretty heavy box office draw at the time.
Definitely, yeah. She had already, didn't she win the Oscar for Ghost?
90,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, it had already happened. So she was a huge name at this point. Probably, I would say probably the peak of her career. So
Yeah, definitely.
it would have actually been really interesting to see Whoopi Goldberg as some version of Ace Ventura. What that movie would have been.
Because that Ted Danson movie was a big hit too. That was right before that, right?
It was right around the same time.
Right around the same time, right? Made in America.
Yeah. That was when they were a couple, weren't they? Weren't they dating?
Yeah.
They were.
Yeah.
One of Hollywood's strangest couples, right there.
Teddy Danson.
Teddy
Man, I
Murphy.
just always
can't
kind of
resist.
felt like he and Mary Steenburgen were to. It just seems like they've been together forever. I forget that he dated other people.
Yeah.
It's like Danny DeVito and oh shit, what is his wife's name? Now I'm feeling
Rhea Perlman.
Rhea Perlman, yeah, who was just great in Barbie, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw that. Check it out. She's one of my favorite parts of that movie. But they've been together forever. Like I kind of just they're kind of that Ted Danson and Mary Steenburgen are kind of the same way for me. Like I'm just like, aren't they always together?
Not to be a downer, but I think Rhea and Danny have splits.
They have.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, more recently.
A few years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
that's Hollywood for you.
Yeah,
Hey, if they can't do it though, what hope do any of us have?
What hope is there?
If Rhea
Hang
and
it up,
Danny
guys.
can't hang in there.
Hollywood's dream couple couldn't make it. So what?
I'll be honest. I got, and I don't pay attention to the Hollywood relationships. I don't care. But when Reese Witherspoon and Ryan Philippe broke up, I was like, they were it. Like, what are we gonna do? I was really upset, and I don't even know why. I'm not a huge Ryan Philippe fan, and he's fine.
You
He's
didn't
great.
get that way with Jen Aniston and Brad Pitt?
No,
I
hated that. I hated that they were so scrutinized in that way. But I was like, if Reese and Ryan can't do it, like this sucks. It's the only celebrity couple I had.
I've gotten us off topic.
This is our
my bad.
spin-off show, Hollywood Couples with David Munchak.
I just wanted I wanted to tell you a story that was related to what we were talking about, just so you can get to know me a little bit better.
Appreciate it.
I just believe in love so much.
I feel like I just got a real good look under the hood.
Anyway, back to Ace Ventura.
So Jim Carrey gets his hands on the script and obviously makes some changes. That's where the character really becomes that cartoon-like version that we see here. But also he kind of put his foot down about like Ace is actually really good at his job. He's not like a bumbling idiot. He's a weirdo and totally bizarre, but he actually is efficient at his job in one way or another. Like he's good at it. So I think that's like an important thing to kind of ground the movie back down, that he's not stupid. He actually does figure things out.
Yeah, it makes it unique, right? Because I mean, it feels like the other way, like the kind of the bumbling idiot way, who just sort of happens into solving the crime or whatever because of their clumsiness or whatever dumb luck, seems a little overdone. And this is kind of a nice, interesting take where it's like, yeah, he is very good at what he does. He himself is just like bananas.
Yeah. Well, compare him to Frank Drebin in the Naked Gun films.
Yeah, exactly.
Also hilarious, amazing Leslie Nielsen, like his greatest role. But he's an idiot and he just stumbles into solving the case, whereas Ace actually does detective work and solves it, on his own.
I would say his greatest role is from Creepshow, but that's fine if you want to go with Naked Gun.
Or Poseidon Adventure.
Which he did that segment with Ted Danson. Sorry, just to loop
Oh,
it
it just
all
comes back to Ted
together.
Danson again.
Wow, Teddy
Yeah.
keeps showing up.
Yeah.
And through Ted, Gutenberg.
And then we're back to Gutenberg. And then you know what? It's Police Academy time one more time.
Cocoonies, unite.
Cocoonies never say die.
That's our podcast where we look at Cocoon 1 minute at a time.
We're
We
never
absolutely
going to be
should.
able to watch Cocoon and talk about it because that will be the last episode we ever do for the podcast.
Yeah. We will wrap it up with Cocoon.
It's the ultimate destination.
Yeah.
The ultimate destination.
Do not go in there. Woo!
Let's talk about Jim Carrey's performance. So, do you guys have a particular, like, there's so many crazy segments in this film. The through line is trying to track down Snowflake, who's the missing mascot for the Miami Dolphins. So you've got that grounding the story here, but it really is just a way to get Jim Carrey from one segment to the next of these crazy situations that he can just go wild on. Do you guys have a favorite, or what are some of your top, moments from the film?
So many.
I mean, I my favorite for sure is the psych ward. I think that is just fucking hilarious. And every time I watch it, no matter how many times I've seen it, even when I had watched it a million times, that's hyperbolic, but so many times when it first came out, that had me rolling every single time.
Yeah.
Just him acting crazy when he does the reverse, like when he's doing the rewind.
Oh man, that's
It
really
is
Oh my God.
so good, dude.
That's-
And like when
yeah.
he's walking and he just slams his face down on the bench, and it's like,
Yeah,
there's
like-
so many.
Yeah.
I
How
love
does he not break every bone in his face doing
rubber
that?
face, dude. Rubber
Yeah.
face.
And that
yeah,
that rewind joke, like I feel like that was the first time I saw that. I don't think that was many people have done it since, but I don't remember seeing a comedian do that so well up to that
Yeah.
point.
I couldn't tell you, but it gets me every time. I'm gonna steal. You guys don't get a chance, but I also liked I love the scene on the balcony of when he's confronting the police officers and Einhorn and he's like slamming the door, and like I love that scene as well when he's like one-upping the police force, showing them how smart he is and how dumb they are.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty great.
Yeah.
He walks in that room and immediately hears, when he's over, you see him like eavesdropping on the other police talking about the crime scene, right? And he puts it together within like 30 seconds that there's a flaw in what they're, the way they're going with it. And he goes out to the ledge and shows that you can't hear. Someone was saying they heard a scuffle, but if the door was closed, you couldn't hear the scuffle out there. So, and he's sliding the door open and closed and doing like an opera song show. You can't hear when it's closed.
Oh, there is just one more thing, Lieutenant. This woman is Roger Podacter's neighbor. She lives across the hall. She said she heard a scream. Is that right, ma'am?
Right.
And you said you had to open the balcony door when you keyed into the room?
That's true.
You're certain you had to open this door?
Yeah, I'm certain.
What's the point, Ventura?
Only this. This is double pane soundproof glass. There's no way that neighbor could have heard Podacter scream on the way down with that door shut. The scream she heard came from inside this apartment before he was thrown over the balcony, and the murderer closed the door before he left. Yes! Yes! Oh, yeah! Can you feel that, buddy? Huh? Huh? Huh?
I love both of those. When he goes to the party by the billionaire party, and
That's a big one.
And gets to the shark.
Yeah.
Like I like that whole sequence. It is so obnoxious. I love it. And then like all the escalation in that, like when he's trying to track down the ring, and then there's just like all these segments with like Don Shula and a bunch of like
the
athletes,
montage, yeah,
and the montage, and then the escalation of like trying to get the runner, like
yeah.
And it just I was cackling on that one particularly. So, but I mean, I was laughing throughout. I was like, and a lot of it was quiet laughter. I wasn't like rolling on the floor like I used to, of course, because I've seen it so many times. But those were the two. I think the shark stuff and like that montage. I was more boisterous in my laughter. Overall,
I think what I just never really thought about before, or as I was watching it this last time, what really struck me was the beginning of that part with the shark. Because when he goes through the window, right, from that point until everything he does at that point is only for the film audience. There's no one else there. That's just how he is, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And like for some reason, that's such a weird thing to include in a performance, right? Because like you figure any comedy movie, if somebody's acting crazy, they're usually doing it for whoever they're with. Like there is an audience inside the scene, but he's just doing that. So like you're like, this guy's insane. Like if you really want to look at it as the piece of theater, this is what he's doing this for himself. So this is just how he entertains himself. He jumps over the railing and then scoots over and then just jumps back and it means nothing, but you're like this is what he's, and I think that just is so peculiar. And I can't think of another like immediate, like, oh yeah, like that's just a way to handle things. And like in a movie that it's such an odd choice. And it's the kind of thing that you'd be like, we should cut this out. Like this doesn't need to be here. This doesn't do anything, but because it doesn't inform the character to the other characters, it doesn't mean anything inside the story, but it's just such a wonderfully strange little bit that like just gives you this like peculiar insight into the character that you've already gone down the road with a bit. But I just think that it's so odd and it's so kind of wonderfully strange in that little moment, what this is saying about who he is, that I just never thought of it before. And then I was like, what? This is just him. This is just his thing.
Yeah. Well, and that was a thing with Morgan Creek, that they wanted to see who the real Ace Ventura is. They wanted that to be worked in the plot. Like, all right, when does he drop the character and show like, all right, this is really Ace in private, which we only see a glimpse of like one time in the movie where he drops it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. Like, and I love that scene too. The mission, he goes in the bathroom. No one is around. He is doing this by himself.
Yeah.
The tiptoeing through and the whole Mission Impossibleness of it, of that he's doing completely unnecessary, but he's doing it anyway.
Yeah.
It's crazy and it's brilliant. And, it's always important when you're watching a film to really get to know that character and to see that this is what he does when he's by himself.
Yeah.
What is happening?
Yeah. No, it was just that like I had never thought of it before. And then like you start to see, like you think of the rest of the movie, you think of like the weird asides right to the camera, sort of that he's not looking at the camera, but like all of a sudden he's like doing a Sean Connery impression for a line and there's nothing. It's just him. And you're just like, this is just this mind. Like this is the way this is working. It almost feels like this is like, I know like if he's involved in the script and in the story, but it's also just like throwing anything out there that you can, that it almost feels like his old stand-up act, which was so crazy. And I think that was the first thing I really remember of his, was the idea that like the impressions he could do, but like that he would do physical impressions, which was so strange with no props and no anything. And that like a piece of that gets into this movie and never really shows up again. Like he really got away from doing impressions pretty much everywhere after a point. So
yeah, this is his wildest physical comedy movie. The rest from here forward, he does like Dumb and Dumber. He does a lot of physical comedy, but not to the extreme extent of this. And there's a lot more of like him just being a character. But there is a lot of his stand-up that gets peppered in here. Like Allllllrighty Then was really from his stand-up. That was something he'd say after he'd like greet the audience and then not give him a chance to respond and just say Allllrighty Then and keep going. But a couple of moments from that party segment that I really, really love was when they first walk in and he's walking Courtney Cox, who we'll talk about as well. When they're walking in and he walks by the cello player and just pulls his arm. That was an improv. He just did that spur of the moment, and it's genius. Like why does Ace do some of the things he does? There's no explanation. He's just, this will be funny. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
He just wants the world to burn sometimes. He's like, let's just fuck this up.
And when he goes in the shark tank, that shot of his face, like when he reacts to see the shark actually jumping out of the water,
Yeah.
what he does with his lips, like how does a human do that? That's a cartoon.
Yeah.
That's all I could think about. He's just a little walking cartoon. And I didn't think of it back then, like at all. Like I was just like, it's just funny, you know, like not even taking a moment to think about like what the hell is this character? It's just joke after joke, and it's silly. And it's like that's all I want. Just make me laugh, you clown. Like
Yeah.
You know, I don't care how you do it.
The David, going to what you were talking about, the extremes in that montage that Ace goes to track down the dolphins. So he knows, he finds when he first gets brought on the case, he finds the jewel, right, the diamond or whatever in the dolphin tank, or in the near the dolphin tank. So he knows, he eventually puts it together that is from a Miami Dolphins Super Bowl ring. So he's trying to track down all the Super Bowl players who might have had that and see if they've still got all the jewels in their rings. And, you know, getting like people to punch him in the face so he could count the impression in his skull, like in the mirror of how many jewels were in that guy's ring. Like, but all the extremes he goes to track down all those players. And the Don Shula one, hiding in the mailbox, like how would he get in that mailbox?
Yeah. And it's like the way he's lit, and the way he's just like he's got a loop so he can examine the jewel and his eye, and his mouth is just like crooked, and he just, the shaking, and like it's just that physical comedy just comes out, and it's just, how is it so funny? And it's just these very purposeful choices, but you don't even think about like the work he's doing. I mean, it's so, because it comes so easy to him. He's not even thinking, he's just being this rubber-faced guy. Like, all of his, I was clocking just so many of his expressions. It's just so impressive, because he looks like a different person, like altogether at certain points. It's, and like, if for anyone who has any listeners who hasn't checked out like his old stand-up and stuff, like go find some clips. Like those physical impressions you mentioned, Joe, like when he turns himself into Clint Eastwood and the audience loses it, like, and it's just, how does he just narrows his eyes and he tightens his jaw and he's Clint, and you can, and it's as good as any verbal impression you could do.
Yeah,
like
it's amazing. Yeah.
So I love his Shatner also that he does.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This was back then when like the Shatner impressions were really, like Kevin Pollak did his, and they were really getting out there quite a bit. Like that, this was a good one.
I've got to, mister. So silly. Love that.
And his body language that goes with it, that really isn't Shatner, but it's like Ace. It's like Ace's version of Shatner.
Yeah.
But I also love the HDS segment in the opening of the film, which is a great way to introduce the character and see him in his, really in his world. Like, this is what he does. And he solves that crime, and he, gets the little dog back. But that opening of, he's just walking down the street for no reason, destroying this package.
Yeah, it was just so funny to watch, and you don't even know why you're like, what's the context
for no reason, just slamming it, doing flips over it, like using it. The elevator doors are slamming on this package.
Yeah.
I think the context is for anybody who's received a package from a delivery service and it's been broken. Yeah. This is what goes through your mind, and he put it on film, and you're like, yeah, that seems right.
And it's very much Ace to just not care about anybody else, Yeah. He's like just laser focused.
Just the pets.
Yeah.
The cart. I think the cartwheel moment with the package was that I remember in the theaters dying at that. Like,
dude, the box buckles too. I was like, man, he was close to just straight on his face.
Yeah. Oh, he definitely could have got hurt. So funny.
And it's all just letting it's Shadyac and Jim Carrey together, who this is the first of, I think, 3 movies that they did together. So a really good pairing between the two of them, of finding the jokes, but also giving him plenty of room to improv. And just, that's why a lot of these shots are kind of wider than you might normally do, because you need to give him some space, because you literally don't know what Jim Carrey is going to do. He could roll into a flip. He could do, anything. So you need to give him that physical space. So it was just, I don't know, it's just really, really incredible. I think it just blew everybody away. Like most people knew him or knew of him from In Living Color and what his talents were, but this was like really making the most of an opportunity.
And who is he, a friend?
No, this is my date. He's a lawyer.
But does he have a name, or should I call him Lawyer? Who?
I'm sorry. This is Ace. Tom Ace.
Tom Ace. Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Camp. And congratulations on all your success. You smell terrific. I was just telling Melissa, one of the first lessons we learned back at Stanford Law was the modern proliferation of food poisoning claims against wealthy private homeowners. In fact, if one were so inclined, one could make quite a lucrative law practice with little else. How is everybody feeling tonight?
Let's talk about another person in this movie, Courtney Cox.
Pre-Friends.
Yeah, pre-Friends.
Just barely.
Exactly.
Post Masters of the Universe.
Post Dancing in the Dark video too.
That's right.
Is it pre-Cocoon though? I don't think so.
Was she in Cocoon?
Yeah.
She should have been.
Who knows?
She's in Cocoon. She's in Cocoon.
Who can say?
She's in Cocoon: The Return.
Oh,
come on, folks! If you
Wow.
want to be a Cocoonie, you need to get your shit together.
We spend so much time on Cocoon that we completely forget about Cocoon: The Return.
Oh my God, I've never seen Cocoon: The Return for sure.
It is a lesser sequel, but it is in the Cocoon world. So
Cocooniverse. Yeah.
The CCU.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cocoon Cinematic Universe.
And I'm just saying, everything goes back to Cocoon. She is in the sequel.
Yeah.
It is before this movie.
I did remember her from, she played Alex's girlfriend on Family Ties.
That's where I knew her from. Yeah.
And so, and she, I remember as a kid, like just really liking her. Like, I don't know what it was. It's just everything about her, the way she carried herself and her hair and her style and everything. I just like very, like, definitely I remember like a little crush on her back then.
She had a great 80s look. She was a very the hair and just the whole thing. Yeah.
And she's really trying to, like, her character, works for the Miami Dolphins organization, and she's kind of paired with Ace while he's on the investigating the missing dolphin, and trying to keep him grounded and focused and on task, and but of course becomes the romantic interest, and that's kind of a wild scene too. And that's like where you kind of see him drop it, like right before they get together, where he does drop he becomes like a actual person for a second. But I was listening to the commentary by Tom Shadyac, and he was talking about the scene where the love scene between the two of them, where they're just going wild, was like the worst scene that they shot, because it was all the pets are, all of Ace's pets are, there's like 100, are watching them have sex, and just like they're trying to focus, and all they hear on the set is the animal wranglers all yelling at all the pets to, like, look left, look right, like,
right. Yeah, I was impressed with all the practical animals, like when he enters his apartment and they all come out and stuff, and I'm like, you'd never do that today. You'd never do that. You'd CGI half of that stuff in, and you'd just have a dog and a cat you could easily manage, but like so many different species and animals in that, like, I was just impressed with that, to be honest, as a, like, for a filmmaking kind of thing. I'm like, Hollywood wouldn't bother doing that.
Another moment there where Ace is by himself is when we first see him go into his apartment, and there he is alone again, and just calls out all the animals, and they come from all over the place, and that wide shot where they're all on him. Yeah. Just like, again, this is something he's doing by himself alone. Oh, it's so good. Kind of amazing that they got the Miami Dolphins, like, organization on board for this movie. That they didn't
I do feel like
a sports
back
team.
then it was easier to get the NFL to do stuff, where now it's like a whole wall. But back then it seemed like they would just pop. You'd have NFL teams popping up in random movies all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's all, now it's so liability focused, and there's always a worry about,
their brand.
Right.
Yeah. The brand.
And it's not like Dan Marino needed more attention. I mean, he was huge, right? In
Isotoners.
Sure, yeah.
Like, but to have the organization there, and like, then there's the character who works for the organization who dies, right? Like, they
played by
kill
Troy Evans. Yeah.
Troy Evans.
Roger Podacter.
Yeah. So he kills. So they kill a Miami Dolphin. They kidnap the Dolphin. They kidnap Marino. They kill a staff member. It's like, oh my gosh, the Dolphins are having a tough time.
Yeah,
and
they're
like,
rough off season for the Dolphins.
Yeah, and meanwhile they got to worry about the Eagles and the Super Bowl.
I did want to. I'm not going to go too far into things, but I did want to mention because I wonder if this is maybe one of the reasons why the NFL doesn't do this anymore. Is it possible Ace Ventura cursed the Miami Dolphins franchise? Because they put them in this fictional Super Bowl. They've never been to the Super Bowl since then.
Oh my gosh.
The only Super Bowl they've been to, the last Super Bowl they were in was the 84 Super Bowl, which didn't end the way it is in the movie. So Ace Ventura curse, maybe?
The Ace Ventura curse.
Maybe.
Could be.
We also get Tone Loc in the film.
Yeah.
Looked After Dark.
Adventures at Fort Fairlane fame.
Yeah.
Posse's Tone Loc.
Yeah.
Funky Cold Medina.
Yeah.
Loved it. Oh my god.
He like that popped up in such like he's also in Heat. It's so random the movies that Tone Loc pops up in, and and he plays Ace's detective friend who's like the only guy who kind of will befriend him on the police squad. And I don't think does he serve really much of a purpose? I can't remember. I don't think he really does much.
No, he doesn't really do
anything.
No.
He gives Ace
another person to bounce off of.
He gives some pertinent information to Ace. But, as that police ally, but other than that,
he also gives Ace somebody for his ass to talk to.
Exactly.
Right.
Another gimmick there. So that
my
that
least
actually,
favorite of the movie, I think.
Yeah, that actually came from a real life thing that happened during In Living Color. That Jim Carrey was pitching, was always pitching ideas and characters to Keenen Ivory Wayans, and at one particular time, I don't know if Keenen was kind of annoyed with him or wasn't giving him enough attention, and he kept turning down all these bits. And then in a meeting, Jim Carrey just gets up and he's so frustrated he does that to Keenen Ivory Wayans.
Oh my god!
Which is like when you're really doing it, it's funny, but it's also hugely insulting and
that could backfire in a bad way.
But it didn't. Keenen broke and just like started laughing hysterically, and I think it broke the ice between the two. But yeah, he brought that bit in here, which he does again in the sequel, and I think that's about where it stopped.
Yeah,
I think he did it once at the Golden Globes.
Oh, that's
he had that run of winning Golden Globes, and then he's like, "It's that guy who talked out of it," and he starts doing it. Yeah, that was a great moment. Yeah,
that's funny.
It's so funny. And then we've got our heavy in the film, played by Sean Young.
Hey,
yeah.
Now this was kind of the beginning of a turn for her career. That she had done, of course, Blade Runner and Stripes and a number of other big movies throughout the 80s and early 90s. But this was, I felt like of course, she was up for Catwoman and in Batman Returns, and I think broke her arm, which kind of cost her the role. So that was kind of a big moment that I think had she gotten that role, I think her career would have gone differently. But it was interesting to see her here. And of course, the character of Finkel / Einhorn.
All right.
So this is obviously in today's age, watching this whole subject is the part that ages the worst out of this whole movie, right? Because we get a lot of quite a bit of transphobia here.
Yeah, it's a movie that unravels by the end. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The whole end is like, ooh, cannot do that. Couldn't do it, shouldn't do it today. Yeah, hard to watch.
The distastefulness of of all, and the fact that all of the cops who are men are spitting when they realize that she's a man. And it's like, so it's also implying that she's just going around like making out and having
sleeping, or
sleeping around
with everybody,
with everybody on the force. It's just it's an unfortunate thing that was is like, it's a core aspect of this character, and then the way it's presented, it just would never fly. It's not funny today. I don't think, I think when I was 14 I didn't kind of get it, but I was absolutely like very ignorant, and like ignorant to all trans issues. What did we know when we were young teens? And
we just called them, we called them cross dressers at the time, right? That was what
mostly
they were categorized as.
Yeah. So it's strange to see that artifact of this film, but I think I would assume that almost everyone involved would have moved on from that kind of behavior and talk. And
it's also a spoof as well. It's a spoof on The Crying Game, which had just come out and was such a big part of that movie. So,
and that's the thing, I think watching it again, I expected to be really turned off by it. Like, I knew this was the plot and I knew this is how it ended and I remembered that, but I expected to be more like outraged somehow. But I think because it uses the Crying Game music and it is so clearly that's what they're going for, that like it's inappropriate. It's not right. Like it's not the right choice to make, but it almost like fits better with the time than a lot of those kind of jokes in other things. Like, I feel like because it piggybacks onto something, that's not to excuse it. I just think that it works almost in spite of itself, given the context of the time. And I don't know that that's necessarily better or that actually matters, but I think this would be a hard movie to introduce to people today for a variety of reasons. I just think the comedy it's that zany style of comedy. I think is just a little, and it's just a little tired and it gets a little egregious. But I think that part, I think it's not as disqualifying as it should be.
Yeah, I think there's
somehow.
I think there is a sophistication to it as that spoof. I guess
for a movie
agree.
That's not sophisticated in almost any way.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
But
you know what? There's no uses of any homophobic words or the R word, for mental health and all that. Like, those would be easy to plop in, especially because they go to a mental institution, and the way some of his talking and mannerisms are, you could easily just float on those terms. But this movie completely avoids any of that, and it would have been not surprising to hear any of that in a 1994 comedy whatsoever. We were still getting it, in 2010, in some places. So,
and it's almost, I think the other thing with it is that it's not like, because it's the villain character and it's because of the pattern that Finkel's life goes, right? Where he gets institutionalized and then he breaks out and he has to go into a disguise. There's no real explanation for internally what's going on with him besides that he's insane, right? And he's insane and he's the villain. I don't feel like the movie necessarily punches down on transvestites or cross-dressing necessarily, because it's almost used as sort of a tool. It's almost like that Brian De Palma movie, which isn't a great movie either, but
Dressed to Kill,
where it's just part of the plot in a way that it's not. I mean, I realize everybody reacts big, but it's like, it's sort of this throwaway gag, but somehow character-wise, it like almost makes sense. It doesn't totally work, but it almost works. And I almost feel like that's sort of the kind of pass that it gets, because there's no inner life to the character, and it's not like they're vilifying the character because of that. They're vilifying the character because they're the villain, because they're a psychotic, and I think that's sort of,
well, it's not a commentary on like the trans community at all, right? Like it's about this person trying to come up with a plan to get their revenge, and they just happen to go full throttle on the disguise, right? I mean, and so I mean, obviously the overreaction of all the other officers and stuff like that, and the reveal scene is one thing. But I think the stuff that's happening with Jim Carrey and the stuff that's like obviously a spoof of Crying Game, like I mean, look, obviously I'm not the right demographic. I don't know if that's offensive or not, but you know, it's a spoof of something that was super popular and talked about at the time. I mean, The Crying Game was a really, really widely known film that came out right around that time.
But don't reveal the ending, Brent. Don't reveal it.
I'm not. I still haven't seen it. I don't. What happens? So
they're playing Monopoly and they all start crying. I don't understand what that
means. That's the game.
That's how Monopoly usually ends. If you were playing with
flipping it over
people in my family. So I don't, I don't know, but I think to your point, Joe, I think, like what you're saying is I agree with you. And I think the reason that it's able to get away with it is because it's not like a commentary on the trans community at all. It is very much just, an ends to, a means to an end for this character to get their revenge, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think that weirdly the kind of run I've had on this show is that I seem to keep coming into episodes where there is some big problematic thing to talk about. And I do think that there's something to this, like if it's like jokes that are just there to kind of dehumanize a little bit, or just like put somebody down a little bit, like that's uncomfortable. That now I think in the modern day feels inappropriate and wrong. And I think it's just something that wasn't recognized in the time. I don't get the same vibe out of this movie, even though a lot of that wouldn't be done today or shouldn't be done the way that it is anyway. But it's not exactly the same thing. And I don't know, like it almost still works for me, kind of.
That's what, and I think that's specifically what I said. Like they don't use sort of the dehumanizing language. I think that's right. I think that's exactly that. There is a level of sophistication to the joke, which. Yeah, I guess. Well, I mean, listen, there were parts I was laughing at, like when he's trying, like, I mean, when they were fighting and he's giving her a noogie in the middle of the fight, like what? It's a fight for their lives, and he's giving her a noogie, but then he's like trying to take her hair off. He thinks it's a wig, and he unbuttons, he takes her shirt off, and all of that, and then even when he pulls her pants down, it is like he's not winning. Like this is so funny. So
he's wrong.
It's just a wild. There's a lot of comedy to it that I think you're right. It's not, I didn't quite have the alarm bells going off either. Along the lines of what you're saying, Joe.
I just expected to, like, somehow I just assumed that's how I was going to react. Cause I feel like, that's, now this is watching older movies. You just have to be prepared for stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was just surprised internally. So
if you're watching it with like your kids, like I watched this right after I think Sonic 2 came out, and I went to see that with my younger son, and he loved Jim Carrey in it, and I was like, oh well, we should watch Ace Ventura, and then I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna need to have a conversation after that. But that's all it was. It was just like, it just requires a discussion about what, if you're watching it with children, what the content is. But there's also, like, beyond that, there's the sexual aggression by Finkel/Einhorn, who does a lot of unwanted touching in the film.
Right. Yeah.
Grabs Dan Marino's crotch and forceful kissing on both Ace and Dan. That that's a thing too.
Yeah. But true. Heavy villain behavior,
Heavy villain, yeah.
And I think that
totally get what you're saying, guys. Yeah. Like I totally agree.
When stuff like that, I think, informs the character. Like the Duke brothers' racism in Trading Places, it works for the character. Yeah. And so it's outrageous, but it's supposed to be. And supposed to be somehow is better than we accidentally got racist in the middle of the movie,
Right. Yeah, you're supposed to. Right, exactly. Like they're using that to manipulate the audience to dislike those characters. Right. That's what they want. So, right. Joe, you're you got the memo that you're the VP of our problematic production department, right?
Apparently, this is when I show up. Oh God, what are we? Oh my God, we're talking about Ace Ventura.
We can love it, but here's why we hate it too. So yeah, I mean, all that being said, I still really enjoyed watching it, and I've watched it a couple times since, and I enjoyed it every time. It didn't kind of what happened the first time. We'll talk about the Jim Carrey fatigue now, which set in pretty quickly for me. I don't feel that anymore. Like I could pop Ace in, and there's so many funny bits that I could just I could laugh at almost anything. But the reaction to this movie. We'll talk about the box office in a couple minutes, but the reaction to Jim Carrey's explosion here is huge. Everybody was doing Jim Carrey, at least where I grew up. Everyone was doing Jim Carrey, and there was this one particular kid in school who will remain nameless, who became Jim Carrey. Everything he said was like the catchphrases, the mannerisms. Like, I get it, dude. You like Jim Carrey, but for crying out loud, So, I think somewhere in '95, probably after Dumb and Dumber, I was totally had Carrey fatigue, and I thank God he turned to dramatic work because I was really over him. I did see Cable Guy and loved it, but I skipped Liar Liar. I skipped, it took a little more for me to go see a Jim Carrey movie. And probably not until Truman Show, where he showed he can be a dramatic actor, a really good dramatic actor as well.
I'm trying to look through his stuff, and it's like I feel like I also got Jim Carrey fatigue, but then I'm looking through his credits, and I'm like, where is it that I actually got the fatigue? I don't know that I really did. I didn't like Batman Forever or Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, so it may have been there, but I like Cable Guy. Dude, Liar Liar is one of my favorite movies that he's done. And
Liar Liar's very good.
Liar Liar's
it is.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah. It's good.
Yeah, and his dramatic stuff, I mean, after Liar Liar is The Truman Show, which is probably one of my favorite movies he's done. So
that's his whole career pivots after once he does Truman Show. That he's getting nominated for Oscars, and Man on the Moon was right behind that, and then Eternal Sunshine was years later, and he's shown that he can. Yeah, that's great.
My favorite for sure.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
I mean, his style of comedy changes so much too that I think that's kind of to Brett's point, is that to get the fatigue of watching Ace Ventura over and over again, or Dumb and Dumber, but he doesn't really do much like that after a point. You know what I mean?
No, I feel like he came back to it a little bit with Me, Myself, and Irene, and I didn't like that one that much. But I also feel like that was less about him and more about a Farrelly Brothers fatigue for me.
It was just the story was odd in that one, and it didn't work as well as Something About Mary and Dumb and Dumber. And
I really like Me, Myself, and Irene. I really do.
I haven't honestly. I haven't seen it in years. I mean, I remember seeing it at the theater, and not really loving it.
It's got some devastatingly good jokes. The whole movie probably doesn't totally work, but I do really enjoy that movie.
I do like the pee scene. That's hilarious.
That is a good one.
We'll add it to the list for our Carrey Fest 2024
for the retrospective.
It's after Moranis month, but okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that for me, the fatigue came in the form of it was just so much Jim Carrey. It was he was always present with In Living Color. Then within 2.5 years, he puts out Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Batman Forever, Ace Ventura 2, and Cable Guy. So that's 6 movies within 2.5 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. And those were all insanely popular.
Yeah, insanely popular movies. And on top of that, his presence, the MTV Movie Awards, the whatever, all the interviews, the press. It was just, he was constant.
And every jackass in high school, myself included, using every line from the movie. So many laser shit going on in the middle of the friggin' hallway. It's like, all right, dude, that's enough.
Go ahead, David.
For me, the fatigue, it's funny because I saw Ace, was watching In Living Color, saw The Mask in theaters. I skipped Dumb and Dumber, and I just now realized why I'd skipped it initially, but that's more internal problems in my brain. But I saw him in Batman Forever. I think I saw Ace Ventura 2 on a rental, And then I was just like, and then the cable guy was coming out. I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm going to see this. And I'm still quoting him. Like I'm still quoting the original Ace, but I couldn't see him play another freaking lunatic, because Batman Forever, as poorly done as some of the creative choices there are, he could have shined really bright as the Riddler. And then why did they make Tommy Lee Jones also absolutely as insane as the Riddler? Like,
but that's everything except Batman in that movie. It's like,
yeah, I know,
extreme.
But it's almost like the Riddler and Two-Face aren't even quite. They're too close together as far like they're not different. They're just two insane people on the same kind of area of their insanity. Like, it's so I like Jim Carrey in it, but it was like he didn't even get to be himself, or he didn't get to stand out. He's going to be mimicked by another character. And so the fatigue is starting to set in. So then I skipped Liar Liar 2, but then I had eventually had seen it, and then I got back on board with him as soon as he did Truman Show, because like now we're seeing something different. So
it's crazy. I'm looking at it, and so I don't remember if I saw Ace Ventura at the theater, but from that point on, I saw every single one of his movies in the theater until Simon Birch, which I feel like he had a smaller role in.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Anyway, and then everything again until I didn't see The Majestic at the theater. And that's like when it, like, for me, I stopped going to the theater to see Jim Carrey movies. But I like The Majestic.
But then even after that, he's got Bruce Almighty, which was a massive movie.
I didn't see that. I know that I didn't see that at the theater, though, because I was like,
I saw that in the theater.
Yeah,
I think that was his last like mega blockbuster hit.
Yeah,
I did see Eternal Sunshine though. Love that movie.
Yeah.
See, I don't think that's the thing, is that I don't think I really went to see a lot of Jim Carrey movies in that time. Like, I hated Batman Forever like so much that like that was really ruined things for me for a bit. I saw The Cable Guy in theaters, but at the time, that movie's so dark and it's so different that I couldn't really appreciate it. But then when you get to Liar Liar and Truman Show, then I was but I don't think I ever really had that like big relationship with Jim Carrey movies. It wasn't like, it's a Jim Carrey movie, I'm going to go see it. It was always a little bit more like reviews and does it, just how did it look? It wasn't really just an automatic like, I'm going to go see a Harrison Ford movie or something. It wasn't quite the same thing. So
right.
Well, the movie is, comes at like the perfect time for all these guys, because it launches obviously Jim Carrey, but also Courtney Cox. Like, I did this factor in to her getting cast on Friends? Quite probably, really. I mean, it's a major movie, and it shows how likable she is. I don't know exactly what she had been. I mean, she was always kind of around, but she really hadn't been a name at this point yet, other than, she was on Family Ties. We recognized her from a couple of things, but this was like a good part for her to at least become more present in everybody's minds as Friends is casting up. And the funny thing was, she actually never saw this movie for quite some time. I don't know. I mean, maybe she went to the premiere and didn't watch the movie or something, but Jennifer Aniston, I assume when she was getting ready to do Bruce Almighty, made Courtney Cox watch Ace Ventura. I think she was embarrassed of it for a while, and that's funny. But
I'm sure Tone Loc shows this constantly at his house.
Come over. It actually was
watching Ace.
It's Ace night. Come on over.
Where does this one rank? And all the Jim Carrey movies that you guys have seen, is this still top 5 or top 10, or where does it roughly fall in for you?
It might not be in the top 10 for me.
Yeah, I
really?
mean,
not in the top 10.
I don't think so. All Jim Carrey movies. I don't think this is in the top 10 for me. I enjoy this movie. I was surprised I liked it as much as I did watching it the other day. But I mean, I would put Yes Man ahead of this movie.
Really?
I kind of like Yes. I mean, there's like his later. Again, I really like Me, Myself, and Irene, Bruce Almighty, Eternal Sunshine, Truman Show, Man on the Moon, Mask.
The Mask.
The Mask. I mean, The Mask and Mask. I'm sure he has
both. He's great in both.
Yeah. And Pink Cadillac, apparently. So it's hard to say, but Kick-Ass 2.
Yeah.
I'd still need to see Kick-Ass 2. Or
It's okay.
I really enjoyed this movie. I wouldn't say like this has got to like there's no way it's touching the top 5 for me. I could see it like toward the number 10 spot. There's so much better reasons to watch Jim Carrey in a movie other than this, and especially, but it is because it kicks things off for his career, and I mean you can't deny that, like how it just really shown the light on him, and it's important for that and for his career. But I don't know if I want to kick it with a Jim Carrey movie, it's going to be some of his later stuff. Like but I do like this sort of like artifact from 1994. But it's not the first thing I'm popping in for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm kind of in the same spot. Like it's not in the top 5 for sure. I mean, I like stuff that he did even before this, maybe even more. But I mean, I appreciate what it is and what it provided to Jim Carrey, because there are a lot of things that he's done that I do really, really enjoy. It's probably around the 10 spot, maybe just out of the 10 spot, but it's like in that area. But yeah, my top 5 are completely different than.
And then
that's so funny. I
number
disagree
one
with you guys.
Still number one.
Number one.
Not
with
number
you?
one.
The King
I would
forever.
say it's probably number 4 or 5. Like I would put Truman Show, Eternal Sunshine. I'd put Dumb and Dumber ahead of this one, and then I'd put Ace in the 4 or 5 spot for me, because I still love the classic Jim Carrey. Seeing some of the just, I think, genius improv little bits. Like the thing with the cello guy just pulling the cello player's arm. Like there's lots of that throughout this movie, and that's why this one still is up there for me with Jim Carrey stuff. I have a problem with The Mask. I have a problem with Batman Forever. I've got a lot of issues with that movie too, Joe. So it's next on our Batman list. So it'll be coming up soon.
Oh boy,
you could miss me on that one. I don't you're not gonna like anything I gotta say about that.
Hard pass.
I'm good.
We keep having you on.
That will be just kind of a straight teardown episode, but
yeah, we keep having you on and you have a good positive vibe for most of these films. So why not bring you into
the dark side
to
of
really shit on something? I like to be positive about. I feel I had this idea. If I was ever going to do a movie podcast, I would do just everything is worth watching and just what's the best thing about any terrible movie you could think of. I'd be like, there's at least a reason to watch it. I would have a hard time with Batman Forever.
Batman Forever. I have a feeling we're all gonna watch Batman Forever, and we're gonna all be able to say all the problems with it, but I think we're all gonna like it a little bit more than we expected.
Maybe
I'm
calling it now.
I don't watch it much.
Let's see.
Yeah. You'll never watch it again, but you're like, that wasn't as bad as I thought, as I remember.
Well,
it's not Batman and Robin. It's not Batman and Robin. So
yeah, I can say at least I'll enjoy seeing Val Kilmer in a role, because he's another one that I miss quite a bit.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, so we'll save all that for our Batman Forever episode, but
we just did it. Let's just cut that part out and then just save it for.
That's it.
We did a twofer.
Put it out for the 30th anniversary in 2 years. Yeah.
So this is in your top 5, John. That
all right.
Yeah,
rock and roll,
I
man.
think I think so, and that might change. That I could see it changing and bumping down the list, but for now it moved back up after kind of rediscovering it. So, but I could definitely see it because it's a lot. It's clearly very, very heavy on the Jim Carrey-ness. So if I start to tire of that again, this one will easily slide to the 8 or 9 spot. But all right, should we take a look at how it did at the box office with a little box office glory?
Yes, please.
Ace Ventura: Pet Detective was filmed in the Miami area in the spring of 1993. It had, I heard a range of a budget. Tom Shadyac on the commentary said it was an $11 million budget, but I've also seen 15. So somewhere in that zone, 11 to $15 million. It opens February 4th, 1994 at number 1.
Oh, yes.
Opening up against stiff competition with My Father the Hero.
Oh.
I'll do anything.
Is
And
My
Romeo
Father the
is
Hero?
Bleeding.
Is My Father the Hero the Gerard Depardieu? Is that
Sure is.
Indeed.
Suck it, Depardieu.
Catherine
Classic.
Heigl.
Catherine Heigl?
Yeah.
That's right.
So that was what was opening that week. It actually took down Mrs. Doubtfire, who held the number one spot for 10 straight weeks, but in week 11, dethroned by Ace.
Wow.
That's something. So imagine a
10
comedy,
weeks.
a 10-week comedy running with Robin Williams at a peak saturation of Robin Williams and generationally new generations meeting Robin Williams every couple of years, and then dethroned by another comedy with the up and comer, the upstart. That's very cool.
Yeah.
And it's in
It
February.
had a $12.1 million opening week. The total domestic run was $72 million, another 35 internationally for $107 million run. So that's a huge hit for that budget, and obviously, like we said, just really shot Jim Carrey out of a cannon. It is the number 16 movie of 1994, right between everyone's favorite Star Trek movie, Star Trek Generations, and Stargate. So, what's
Stargate? Awesome.
The sci-fi crowd was divided by Ace Ventura. The Mask was the number 9 movie of that year, so definitely capitalizing on the popularity of Jim Carrey, probably pushed that one up further. So, and of course, go ahead, David.
Considering the international, like, you know, that's a decent haul for making 72 and making 35 international. But like, and I never do this, and I don't speak any other language well other than English. But I kind of want to, like, how did the German voice actor do Allllllrighty then? Or, you know, and like all the just the weird way he talks. Like, I want to hear this in all the languages now. So like, I need to
yeah, how does that translate?
You can't just say the words. Like, you have to perform Ace Ventura.
Yeah, I'd love to see like the Japanese version of this. Like, it would be great. So not to sorry to interrupt the box office talk.
I'd like to see, you know, other, you know, foreign remakes of this, you know, not just the audio of it. I want to see it.
Like they shoot it. Like, yeah, that would be amazing.
Top at the box office in 1994 was The Lion King, Forrest Gump, and True Lies.
Rick Moranis' Forrest Gump would have been incredible.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God. He could have won an Oscar.
That movie would have been Moranicized.
Oh, my God.
I've seen all these movies. I saw Stargate in the theater, Generations, Lion King, Forrest Gump, True Lies, Doubtfire. Oh, my gosh. I was in the movies a lot in 94.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. These are all a lot of crowd pleasers, but that's me.
Yeah. So this is obviously huge for him. But I think it's really The Mask that kind of cements him, because the success of that, like, okay, now he just brought in over $200 million that year alone. So that's really what cements him as an A-list star, and he never left. The Tom Shadyac does not return for the sequel, unfortunately. He was off doing The Nutty Professor, which was a big movie as well in 96. Let's talk about that sequel for a second. There's also a cartoon. Did anybody catch the Ace Ventura cartoon?
No. Why would you?
I knew it existed, but I didn't watch it.
It was really, you know, meant for little kids, and it's very, you know, very similar to the cartoon mannerisms and all his catchphrases and everything. But we had aged out by that point, so.
There was also The Mask cartoon on the air. I think it might have been on the same network or whatever, but it's totally different style and design. And they did a crossover episode with the weird design of Ace Ventura and the Mask, and they crossed over and talked to each other.
Thank God!
Whoa!
and very strange. I remember
Whoa.
I caught a piece of that, but that was it.
So Ace Ventura 2, I don't want to spend too much time on that. When Nature Calls, I was not a fan of that movie. I think there's like a couple of funny beats in it. Of course, the rhinoceros, him climbing out of the rhinoceros's butt, pretty funny. But overall, it was just strange. You had such a good formula here. The traditional detective story, right, is the format of the first film. And they take that away and, send him to, where's he? Somewhere in Africa, right? And it's just a really kind of strange setting to put him in. And the plot was much thinner. And it just, I think it just wasn't working.
Yeah, I don't even really remember the movie. I saw it the one time, and then that was it. So I don't even remember the plot or what was going on. And yes, I remember being just kind of like, oh, that's a shame. Like I remember liking bits of it, but I couldn't recall much of it at all.
Yeah, I only remember the rhino scene. That's it.
Yeah.
I do. Well, you know how he parks his car, so he drives this car and you can't see through it in the first movie and all that. So, and then he's spinning the car to park it and all that, and then he gets in a car accident. And then I do remember in the second one though, he's driving a Jeep in a vehicle and he just jacks the wheel and the car literally just does like a gigantic flip, and then it lands right in the parking spot. I do remember that, and I found that it's really funny. I mean, it's not really an Ace thing. It's an Ace thing, but it's not it's not Jim Carrey doing anything. Like it's just a funny
effects.
joke. Yeah.
I meant to rewatch it for this because I was like, I like to be over prepared, but like I just didn't. And I'm pretty sure I have seen it. I think I saw it, but I think I saw it at either like the discount theater in Scranton when it was out, or I saw it at the drive-in. It was somewhere where I wasn't really paying attention to it, like a super amount. And so I have almost no memories of that movie, except that everyone is like, don't bother. That's about all.
Yeah, it's very missable. But yeah, I mean, like you could catch highlights on YouTube or something and you're good.
You got the whole idea.
Or don't. Just don't.
Just move on. Yeah.
There's a couple of funny things, but it's not worth spending, 90 minutes or an hour and 40 minutes, whatever it is. So
not when you could pop in a Police Academy or a Cocoon.
I'm just saying, Police Academy 5 is just sitting there. Why not watch it?
Waiting.
Operation Miami Beach, get out of here.
Yeah, Miami Beach. On. Once they get on the road, that series really takes off.
The road episodes are really good.
Yeah. Moscow, Mission of Moscow.
Tackleberry's got the gun on the alligator. It's almost perfect cinema. So, yeah.
I think we kind of covered, how we feel like it's aged. There's some problematic things, but worth a discussion. Not worth completely skipping the movie. Definitely, it's just something to be aware of that it exists there. Like so many movies and from the decades that we talk about. But well, I'm looking forward to covering more Jim Carrey movies. This is the first one on ReconCinemation. So welcome, of course, welcome to the show, Jim, Courtney, Tom Shadyac. It's a pleasure having them here. So
this is my second Troy Evans movie because he was in Teen Wolf. So
now at least second, I guess. Yeah, a marathon. I actually I saw Troy Evans at we had just seen Mad Max Fury Road and went for a bite to eat at the bar right next to the theater we saw it at, and he was in there, and nice. I was like, I really need to talk to Roger Podacter. I was too shy, so. All right, well, Joe. So what can everyone look forward to on It Happened One Year? What's next?
Well, I mean, we're going to be barreling forward with 84 for a while. In the past, the other seasons we've done, it's been about the same, about a year. This season we started a little later, so I think we're doing 84 almost the rest of this year. It's going to be a lot because we got a lot of scripted episodes coming up, including the entire ReconCinemation gang coming to pitch in, playing parts, part of the mighty Ahoy players who just people I'm roping in to play some roles. We got an upcoming scripted episode based on the famous Pressure Luck episode when the guy figured out how the system worked and defeated it. And then later in this year, we're gonna start talking Geraldine Ferraro when we get closer to the presidential election. I think we're gonna do. There's a lot on the horizon.
Can I suggest? maybe some murders.
I'll try to find
some murders.
Let's see what happens.
I mean, all those topics
Thanks
are
for
cool.
the contribution.
Yeah.
Why not murder?
Keeping it dark.
Why not?
Well, that's awesome. We'll make sure we stay tuned for everything that happens there. And Joe, it is always nothing but a pleasure to have you here. And I'm already excited. Come back and let's take a quick coffee break. Come back and we'll find another. We'll bring it back here.
Yeah, see if we got another Courtney Cox joint to get into. You want to do Masters of the Universe? I am ready right now. I am prepared.
I saw that.
Lots
I saw
to
that
talk
in the
about.
theater.
I saw that in theaters. Yeah. So
does it have Troy Evans though? Because that's I think the.
There's at least a chance.
I'm looking it up.
Who played Beastman in that movie? Who's Manny Faces? Come on.
Hey, Troy Evans pops up he's in Twin Peaks. He's in Near Dark. Yeah, such a recognizable face. But yeah, we're excited to have you back, and always love having you here. And thank you to some of our other friends, E.K. Wimmer for the theme music as usual, Curtis Moore for the poster. You can check us out. We're at ReconCinemation podcast on our social media platforms. Check out our archives at ReconCinemation.com, where you can check out 7 other episodes that Joe's joined us for.
Mm-hmm. But can you name them all?
Oh, that's the trivia. There you go.
That's right. I did sleep through while we were sleeping, so it could be 9.
You were sleeping, so
I was.
And I'm very excited. We got a cool lineup coming up, an interesting lineup coming up in February. A little romance, a little sports romance, maybe.
Ooh.
So we'll leave everybody hanging there. But stay tuned. We will see you guys next time on ReconCinemation.
Take care.
Bye now.
You better get to it instead of just standing around. It's time to get down. Yeah, if you got all the stuff and you can't get
No expectation.
I had avenues to go down with like similar type characters throughout history. Like, where does Ace Ventura fit in? Is it, he's like Falstaff sort of, but he's also really involved in the plot. If Falstaff had, led a mystery through, say, I don't know, the Comedy of Errors, is that just Ace Ventura? I don't know, maybe.